And probably the most important thing that I end up discussing in the later series, part 3 and 4, is just the elimination diet. So this is a huge part of finding success within EOE. So really stay tuned. Just a little bit about my experience with the elimination diet and how that really helped me. So I'll eventually make a video going into a little more detail about that and how to go about doing that. But this is just a general overview of everything. So again, if you like it, please subscribe to the channel and please share it with someone. And yeah, I hope to see you next time. And also, please, if you have any questions, comment down below and I'll try to get back to you. So. So when things started to get actually a lot better was when I saw my second specialist, and I won't mention his name, but he was awesome and he really helped me through the situation. So I ended up getting the scope with him, and I actually ended up going to his office, I think probably later that week or maybe the week after my scope was done. And again, I didn't have the same experience with the scope. I was actually sedated fully. I didn't feel anything, I didn't kind of partially wake up during the procedure or anything like that. And so it was totally fine and totally great. He explained to me what EOE was and, just the implications of it. And, he knew that I was a firefighter. So it's like, hey, how can we work through this? How can we work through this together, right? And figure this out. And there's different options. I didn't really want to go on to any medication or anything like that because of potential implications of being on medication. But so what I ended up actually doing was the 6-food elimination diet. And a lot of people do this, and I think it's honestly one of the best ways to figure out EOE, because the thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to keep, especially if it's allergy related, you don't want to keep eating the food that's causing the EOE to get worse. And the reason for that is because as it gets worse, sometimes there can be scar tissue that's built up in your esophagus and it actually rips. And one of the procedures that they sometimes have to do is they have to expand your esophagus. They'll actually have to stretch it out. You don't really want to go through this. I have never gone through it myself. I've never had to, because I had done this elimination diet, and let me tell you, you have to be very strict with it, or else then you will ruin the results of it. And so what I actually had up having to do was the elimination diet probably lasted over a year, because sometimes I did screw up. And the thing was that every 2 months I had a scope, and so I cut out the six foods. So it was dairy, eggs, wheat, nuts, soy, and seafood. So those are the 6 that I had cut out. So you cut out those completely. And what you do is that the first month you introduce something. So maybe I'll introduce dairy. And so the first 2 months, I had dairy those first 2 months, and I noticed that, okay, things are not really going really well. And then when I get scoped after 2 months, they'll take a biopsy, and if I have eosinophils found there, then it knows that, hey, that dairy caused eosinophils. So then the next 2 months is that I know that I eliminate dairy, I don't add that in, and maybe I add, say, nuts to this next 2-month phase. So when I add the nuts and I eliminate the dairy, because I knew that caused eosinophils to build up and inflammation, that after that next 2 months, maybe I didn't have any eosinophils found from the biopsy, or a very low amount that is less than the kind of the threshold for EOE. And so then I know, hey, I can have nuts now. And which was awesome, because at this point I had done an elimination diet and focused on kind of the inflammation, which I would love to talk about with my wife Chelsea later, is how to reduce inflammation from dieting, which really helps. Is that now the inflammation went down because I had eliminated everything at this point, and I was actually able to start kind of eating little bits of food. And I think it was around December and Christmas time when I was actually starting to actually eat food. And I believe the first thing that I ever had was rice crackers and hummus, which was like, I love that. That's a perfect snack if you're looking for alternatives, but awesome snack. And so with these eliminations diets, now I know that, hey, I can have nuts the next 2 months, and I'm going to add, say, wheat and gluten, right? And so when I go and get scoped 2 months later, then I know that the nuts aren't causing it. So then now they really look at the wheat, and if there's no eosinophils again found with wheat, then I know that, hey, I can have nuts and wheat because that's not causing it. At the same time, remember, I've still eliminated dairy because the first time that I did dairy, they found eosinophils. So I'm still eliminating that, but I'm adding nuts and I'm adding wheat. So as the time progresses, you start to add more to your diet. You start to get a lot more freedom with it, and you start to really find out what are the things that are causing these eosinophils to cause the inflammation in your esophagus. I could imagine for kids it would be really hard, and actually as an adult, living in the fire hall, because you're cooking as a crew, you're eating as a crew in our department anyway, and it was really hard. But what I ended up doing is I had smoothies, for myself for the first, maybe few months until I was actually able to eat solid food. And then from then they were all very accommodating, and it was, and I really appreciated from everyone in our department that, they were making food that I could have as well. So that was awesome as a probationary firefighter at the time, and still being able to be part of the team and have them accommodate for a brand new member was great, and I really appreciated that. So if you're watching, anyone who was on my shift, I really appreciate that during that time, because my exterior might have seemed that I was very happy and go getting, but actually on the inside I was super depressed at that time, especially, and was going through a really low point in my time because it was miserable, and I didn't know. So that's where things are starting to get a lot better through this elimination diet. I got to the point further along in my elimination diet as sometimes I'd have to repeat certain months, which sucks, because if you kind of cheat and you accidentally add things in, maybe it's not just going to be one time, but I actually ended up finding out that a lot of granola had dairy in it. So I would add like nuts, and in that it would be granola, and I didn't actually know that it had some sort of whey protein or modified milk ingredients as one. So you have to be really careful about that as well. So at this point, fast forward, I don't know when it was, but it was actually a point that I had met with the specialist, the gastroenterologist, and he had said that I actually don't have EOE anymore because the eosinophil counts were below kind of that threshold, and they were low enough in my throat that I wasn't classified to have it. It was such a weird feeling knowing that I didn't have EOE again. And it was really bizarre. I didn't really know how to even take it, because like after all that experience, all that time, it was like over a year of doing all these tests and scopes and eliminating foods and just fighting with the cravings that happened too. I didn't have it anymore, and it was really weird. And so I actually ended up taking biopsies, and I still have biopsies now, and it's because I'm taking medication now. I'm taking an anti-acid for my stomach, and as well like this puffer for asthma that asthma patients have, but except I just swallow it instead of breathe it in, inhale it, and I'm adding dairy to my diet just to see if that works. But I really want to reduce dairy anyway, because it would be a lot healthier for me. And so those are still ongoing tests that I'm doing right now. And so that's a bit about my experience of where I'm at now. I'm still not done doing scopes, but as you can see, I'm not, you know, I don't know if you can tell by the camera, but I'm not 168 pounds anymore. I'm comfortably sitting at like 200 some pounds now. I've been able to train just as hard, and I've actually been, before this whole COVID crisis, I was actually the strongest I've ever been. And so now, you know, I'm able to live life. I'm able to do firefighting really well. I'm able to eat actually anything I want now. I still have this, I still have EOE, and I'm working through the medications that I'm taking for it. And I'm hoping that, you know, it'll just grow out of it one day, because that's actually one possibility with a lot of people, is that the specialist is saying that you can just grow out of it and it'll go away, because it's an autoimmune disease, and I'm really hoping that that does happen. And but just that my life right now is, I'm not really having to make many sacrifices at all, and I'm able to still firefight, but with full capabilities. I'm able to train as much as I want and as hard as I want. Yeah, and so I've just learned to combat it and learn to work through it, and I really want to help everyone as well. So if you've liked this video, please give this video a like as well, and maybe share it with someone who's going through the same situation and wants to hear and learn a little bit more about my story with eosinophilic esophagitis, and as well to keep updated and tuned for, you know, some of the smoothie recipes that I came out with, and the soup recipes that my wife had made, and just a little more detail about specific things of how I actually got through it. So yeah, if you liked it, please subscribe to the channel and check me out on Instagram and TikTok if you like as well. But I'll be posting more videos, and I really hope you liked it. I hope you learned something, and I hope that you also have a lot of hope if you're going through EOE right now as well, and just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and the more you know, the better. So educate yourself, and as well, yeah, keep up to date with these videos, and I'm going to be coming out with more. So until next time, we'll see you later.